Welcome everybody, thank you very much indeed for coming. My name is Dan Brockington, I direct the Sheffield Institute for International Development. I'm very pleased to see that you're all here. A couple of housekeeping points to begin with. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so do please leave the building, head out into the corridor, into the courtyard and then out into the street. We are recording this event, please note that. And if you're tweeting it, the hashtag is easy to remember, it's just hashtag NGO Explorer, as you can see written behind me. So hashtag NGO Explorer. And facilities are out the doors towards the lift. The purpose of this gathering is to present to you a really exciting new networking website, the potential for which has existed for a fairly long time because it simply uses data which are available in the public domain. Oh, and before I forget, a special welcome to all the people who are online. If I cannot be heard, please start messaging Sarah Johns, who will be making sure that we're all speaking loudly enough so that you can all hear. Thank you very much indeed for joining. There will be a chance to ask questions at the end of this, and if you're online, message Sarah the questions and we can relay them to the room. This site, as I said, the potential for it has existed for a long time. However, it's not been realised until very recently. We want to show you how it works and also how it fits into the broader ecosystem of all the other networking facilities that exist, because this site has meaning because of all the other things which are going on. I want to say a very special thanks to the people who sponsored us, the Global Challenges Research Fund and the Economic and Social Research Council, which is called the ESRC, Universities of Manchester and Universities of Sheffield for their support as well. We will have a half-hour introduction to the site from David. And David, thank you for all this amazing work you've done to the site, because it's incredible. David built it. And then we're going to have talks from Vic, from Pauline, and from Nikki and Sarah, who will just explain a little bit more about the network opportunities which are available, and into which this might fit. And then we will bring some. You're welcome to stay and enjoy them and ask further questions. Are there any other questions at all about this? David, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. I'm David Kane. I'm a freelance researcher, data scientist, and quite a lot of what I do is about building. Sorry, I'm in the right place with the screen. So quite a lot of what I do is about building tools to help people understand charities and NGOs, and turn that data, quite often kind of administrative data, like the data we're presenting here, which is originally from the Charity Commission, in a way that helps them understand the ecosystem that they're operating in. So I work a lot with foundations and others kind of trying to do that. I guess the first question is, why did we do this tool? It came out of projects that Dan and Nikki had been working on. And at the start, we tried to come up with, we started with user stories, to use the kind of web terminology, of the kinds of applications for this site. So some of the things that we wanted to achieve were trying to connect NGOs together. So there's this sense that NGOs might not know other organisations that are working in the same areas. They might want to work in a new area and understand who's there that they could connect with. They might want to know. There might be a local NGO working overseas who wants to connect with someone from the UK working in their area or look for funding. We saw a use case where people wanted to explore what does the UK sector working in a country overseas look like, what areas are they working, what are the gaps, what are the kind of strengths. And we know that people don't just want to to kind of look at what we've decided is important, but they might want to do their own analysis. There's a lot of kind of deep financial data in the Charity Commission data, so being able to give people a chance to download and interrogate that data themselves and do their own analysis. So those are some of the kind of main things we were trying to achieve with this website. So where does the data come from? Well, for the most part, we're using data from the Charity Commission for England and Wales. I'll talk a little bit about kind of other potential data sources later, particularly Scotland and Northern Ireland, that we'd really like to kind of bring into this tool as well. And there's a fantastic site called CharityBase, put together by a guy called Dan, who is essentially a kind of much more friendly way of accessing it than some of the kind of bulk downloads that the Charity Commission provides, and that allows us to do the kind of sophisticated searching that's on this site. So in many ways, this is a kind of front end to the interface that Dan's built for CharityBase, and we work closely with him to kind of make sure that it could do the kind of things that we wanted to do. But one of the other things we wanted to do is not just use one data source and kind of sit in isolation, but to bring in other data that's available as well. So IATI, which I'm sure a lot of you will know about, is an initiative to publish data about activities that are happening in the international aid sphere all around the world. So what we tried to do was look for the UK organisations. So where the organisations we were finding from the Charity Commission data were appearing in IATI and kind of link those together, both at a kind of country level, but also at an organisation level as well. And the other thing that we wanted to do was connect with other existing data sources out there. So where a country has a similar sort of portal showing information about organisations working in that country, we wanted to kind of connect those resources so that this tool isn't just standing in isolation, but is part of a kind of ecosystem that can help people answer the questions that we posed at the start. So I'm going to do a live demo, which never works, but we'll give it a go anyway. So I thought it'd be useful to kind of give you a tour of some of the things that the site can do, and some examples of the kind of information and the kind of questions that you can ask of it. So one of the first ones is you can explore a country. Okay, so you can explore a country. So you can look at, it will give you a dashboard which summarises the information that we've got from the data about the types of organisations that are working there. So we can do, let's try the live demo thing. So here's an example of a country. That little green block should be be surrounded by. I'm sorry, my.
Or to reshare it every time.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll stick with the. I'll stick with Chrome. Yeah, so that country should be surrounded by the rest of Africa. I think it's the kind of colours on the projector. So this dashboard tells you a bit about the organisations that say they work in this country, and you can see we're picking up some of the keywords that they're using in their descriptions. So you can see the kind of activities that they're undertaking. We've got some kind of summary information that puts them in the kind of wider context of both the kind of international sector, but also the kind of the whole UK charity sector. And then we get some financial information about where what resources they have, some information about the kind of areas that they're working in, and again, that chart should be working, but the other countries that these organisations might also work in, and then some of the kind of activities that they undertake, and the kind of beneficiary groups that they work with. And then we also tap in, as I said, to these other data sources. So here's this is actually a kind of embedded dashboard from IATI, which just summarizes the data that's available from IATI on the same country, and you can click through to these, and it will take you to the sort of equivalent IATI website. And then we've also got some links to other kind of local resources that might let you explore a bit more about what's happening in that country, and linking to things like different step tracker, which again is using that IATI data. Yeah, so that's kind of exploring a country. The other thing you can do is search. So here I've searched for conservation organisations, and this search you can sort of limit search to a country or a group of countries, or you can, in this case, I've looked at any organisation that's working in any country outside the UK, and you can see it's found 2,000 NGOs. You can do those same summary stats for your search, but you can also look at a list of those organisations, so you can start to see the kind of organisations and explore a bit more about them. And I'll come back to each of these organisations also as their own page, again using that kind of linking those data together. And then let's try next one. So here I've done a different search. This time I'm looking at overseas organisations, but those that are headquartered in the northwest of England. And this is the download page. So here we have a selection of fields. So again, we've got the financial data, we've got a bit more description about what those charities are doing, geographical data about where their headquarters is, and kind of contact information as well. And once you've done this, you can, I won't return this, but you can download that into Excel, or if you know what JSON is, you can use that data, and that might be to explore the data in Excel, to visualize it, to connect it with other data sets that you might have. And then the other thing I wanted to show was a page for an individual organisation. Again, that's a map on the side with the Falklands highlighted.
Highlighted by that small dot.
Yes. So the rest of the world has gone AWOL, but it is on a different screen. And this just tells you a bit more about so where this organisation is headquartered. You can have a look at what's happened to its finances over the years, and again you can kind of wanted to be able to connect these resources to other places, so you can go look at the record on Charity Base or on the Charity Commission website. You can also go to the organisation's own website from here as well. Okay, I think you might need to help me if I switch back to the presentation. Yeah, so as I say, there's lots of resources that are linked to from various pages to be able to help you connect the data together and explore to other places. And I guess one thing we wanted to emphasise is this site, we didn't want it to stand in isolation. We want to kind of connect it to other initiatives that are happening. These are kind of some of the ones that I'm aware of, and I'm sure you guys know of other ones where there's a lot of data out there, and a lot of data that relates to the social sector, whether it's in the UK or internationally. So Charity Base, again, we've mentioned 360 Giving is an initiative to try and get grant makers to publish data about who they're funding, both in the UK and overseas. The regulators themselves are publishing data and are working on yeah, improving and making more friendly and useful the data that they do publish. So we do see this site as kind of fitting into that wider picture. That's it. I'm not sure that's half an hour, but that's sort of introduction to the site. Do feel free to tweet us, or we've got an email address that's on the site as well for any feedback. Yeah.
David, thank you. Do we have questions at all from audience here or online? Audience.
I'm not tech savvy at all, but the data that you've got, that pulls directly from the Charity Commission. So when we update the Charity Commission, this automatically gets data.
That's right. So Dan's now back from Charity Base. So it relies on Charity Base updating, and Charity Base is pulling through from I think the monthly the data download, which is so every month that gets updated by the Commission, and then Charity Base will sort of pull that in, and then those figures will.
Okay, so not directly with the Commission, but you're directly with the Commission then.
That's right. Yeah. So it should never be more than a kind of month and a half behind that once everything's worked its way through.
And can charities add to their data themselves?
So not at the moment, and that's yeah. I guess that's kind of that's one of the things that might be down the road in terms of things that we'd like the site to do. Yeah, it's not something they can directly do at the moment.
We have to be careful because the source of knowledge is the Charity Commission.
Yes.
I mean, you don't just set up some sort of alternative replacement. So everything comes from the Charity Commission, and everything that is you can see on the website is actually already in the public domain. All that we're doing is making it more accessible. Yes.
So I've got two questions. Sorry, first dim question. I know you could sort on the country and you could sort on the sector, but can you sort on several things all at the same time? So your numbers, the number of NGOs coming up gets slimmer. So because to look through 2,000 options as well, still not a lot. Oh, you can do that.
Yes, definitely. So you can sort on, you can do a search term, and that will search both the name and the kind of description of the charity. You can combine it with looking at different sizes of charity based on their latest income. You can look at where the kind of activity that they do, or the beneficiaries that they have, and where the region that they're headquartered in, the England and Wales region, and there's one more that I've forgotten as well. Oh, you can kind of narrow it down to a country or a group of countries that they're operating in. One thing that I forgot to mention was that one of the something that's worth bearing in mind when looking at the site is that some charities say they work in every single country, and what we've done is kind of exclude those, because otherwise they'd appear in every single search that anyone did. So that's just something that's worth bearing in mind. We've limited it to those charities that say they work in 50 or less. But you can tweak that. So if it does look like organisations that you're expecting to see aren't coming up, you can kind of tweak those searches.
I think there are 218 organisations which work in every single country in the world, of which 60 have an income of less than £10,000.
So good. So my second question was, I think that's the beginning. You showed an example of one of the NGOs that had their total budget over time, but then also how much they were put into different countries.
Yes, possibly. So again, one of the complications is that we're not able to break down their total budget across the different countries. So we have to be quite careful and creative with the wording to make sure that that's kind of fairly clear. That's where something like the IATI data would come in, because that does have that kind of country breakdown. So where they are kind of present enough in the IATI data that's been published, it's the kind of place where you could go to explore where is the activity actually happening, because in some ways the countries that they say they work in, again, particularly if they're saying they work in lots of countries, that might not be worth their focus.
Have you got a dashboard? Just showing yes, so up here it shows that This is research for Benin in West Africa, so 161 organisations. And these 161 organisations are spending in total 426 million, but that is not in Benin alone. It's in all the countries in which all those organisations work. Because we cannot allocate country because that sort of information isn't within the Charity Commission data. And this is something I was quite keen on. We call this the anti-Daily Mail label because it puts this very large sum of money, 136 million, into context of the entire spending on the charitable sector. And were you to put every single country in the world, excluding UK-only NGOs, you'd still end up with a small proportion of the spending in absolute terms of charities in individual words. Sarah?
Sorry, yeah, we've got a question online from Raga Jibril from the organisation Green Godolphin, and he asks, how could this be useful for a small charity?
You want to have that one? That's right.
You start, somebody use the jazz.
Okay. So I think one of the things that we wanted to do was make it easier for charities to connect with each other. So I think there could be so it's possible to suggest to look at foundations organisations that are making grants. So there could be a case for looking for funding, or it could be looking for partners. So if you've got a particular country that you're working in, or one that came up from the workshops that we did was a charity that's working in a particular country or a particular region and wants to expand to another region. So they might want to kind of see who's working in that region in a similar field, so they can either collaborate or kind of work with them. So.
We've tested the design of this has involved repeated testing with focus groups, largely composed of small charities. We've done this once in London, in Sheffield, and in Bristol, and then we've also had a series of conversations which set up for charities which are based outside the UK, but also some would like to use the site. Its value is that it makes any charity commission data instantly accessible, and it allows you to sort through them to learn what other organisations are doing where. And there's actually one extra bit of information on it, which thanks to Dan at the back for making this possible, which you don't get on other sites, which I found incredibly useful. And this is Dan, now you'll know the tech here, but I think you've scraped text from the Charity Commission site, which charities use to describe themselves. So if you're searching for a particular phrase or activity, you can search using that phrase, and if it appears in the text about the charity, then it will pull up that charity. So if you're not confined to searches of charity names, you can also effectively do use word search for things that charities are associated with. And that I've not seen elsewhere. Are there any other questions? Right. I've forgotten my running order. Could I welcome you guys? Pauline Broomhead is CEO of the Foundation for Social Improvement. The idea for this site, in fact, came at one of your events when an organisation worked in Sierra Leone found it possible to meet other organisations in Sierra Leone at one of your events. We thought there's additional ways of doing this. Pauline, thank you.
Cool. So, I'm sorry, I've been judging the small charity Big Impact Award all afternoon. So I've thrown something together here before I've come along. And so I've been reading lots the last 6 weeks about small international NGOs, because that's what the awards are for. And I've got to say, it's been very uplifting, all the reading we've been doing and all the great work that goes on. So, yeah, Dan said, I'm Pauline Broomhead, I'm founder of the Foundation for Social Improvement. I'm sure some of you are members. I hope you're members, because we deliver very affordable services for small charities. And of course, international NGOs are part of that. So first of all, thanks to Dan and Nikki and David, and I've found another person to thank, Dan at the back. So I think that Dan's are very interested in this sort of work. for their commitment to this project and to say how pleased the FSI is that we were able to support you in some way and that we can ride on your shoulders to say that the idea came from one of our events. It wasn't the most it was the most interesting thing that came from that event, but what also came from it is you naughty charities were saying terrible things about DFID, and I've had them on my back for the last year saying, talking about it, so keep being nasty to DFID, that's all I would say. But I hasten to add, this is not the FSI's initiative, it's Dan's and Nikki's and David's, and it's amazing. And what I would say is quite different from Charity Commission, if I just may say, is that it's not static, it's not flat. So you go to the Charity Commission, you can search under lots of things, but when you go into this site, you can manoeuvre to different things. And that sort of takes, you know, whatever thoughts you're having, you could go off in a different direction and go through to different sites and see different things. You can't do that with the commission. So I think that's really quite useful for small charities. I think small charities, and I'm going to say this, aren't I, because we represent 7,500 of our members, that we're operating in very unusual times. And although I'm not too sure when people say that, when we haven't operated in unusual times, but we have many challenges that face us, and I do think that this site can help us. So from my research that we do, we know that charities are facing funding issues and problems and have been doing increasingly, and at the very best, income is flatlining to the sector, it's not increasing. We know that the demand for services from you guys has increased overall for our charities by something like nearly 180% in the last 4 years. So if your income's not going up, the demand for your services is going up. We've got a real problem in the sector. And also that more and more small charities are saying that their workload is just unbearable and very difficult to deliver against. And you guys yourselves, I think, have faced some special challenges with safeguarding, so on and so forth, and all of that was seen in the papers. So I think being able to launch such a positive initiative is really exciting and heartwarming, really. And I think it's an exciting initiative because it is a tool that you can play with, and it can help you with your networking. I think networking with other organisations that are working in a similar area to yours, that are complementary, delivering things in areas they want to go to or you are already in. And you can look to them to be able to talk to them, to say, well, we have a specific problem. How are you dealing with this? Or we've had this bit of learning from this experience. Can I share that with you? And I know you do a great Facebook where people talk and things like that, and I think that's wonderful. But I do think it's important to have as many sources of information as you possibly can, because I do believe that a lot of the answers to some of the questions and challenges that are facing us is more collaboration, whether that is bidding for contracts or whether that is sharing learning or whether it's just, you know, sharing that how do we deal with something. So I have no doubt that NGOs as part of this network will use it to their full, and I know all of our members will, and we'll keep reminding them that it's there. But I also think it does make it easier for other people that are interested in our sector but are not part of our sector. So indeed today I was doing a piece of work for a potential funder and one of our supporters, and he was interested in charities in South America, and so I was able to go on there, and instead of, because I had quite a few criteria, I was able to drill it down to 72, which is a manageable group of charities to look at. And so I do hope that philanthropists throughout the UK would be able to look at this site, find an area, geography that's of interest to them, a cause that is something that they're passionate about, and be able to use that to contact charities. Because I do believe more and more philanthropists are much more engaged and sophisticated, and they go and look at what you do before they contact you. So I think that is really important to be part of that. I also welcome the new initiative because we're able to meet, because you're able to meet together, whether that's Facebook, special interest. But in this one also, it's great that you can talk, get together, talk to each other, because the more we share, the more we learn, and the more we do for our beneficiaries. I'm not going to say any more than that, but I just want to thank Dan and the rest of the team, Nikki and the David and the other Dan and everybody else who's helped for putting this together. It's phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Victoria, thank you very much for coming. Victoria set up a fantastic Facebook site. Brilliant. Tell us about the Facebook site, Victoria.
Hi, sorry, I thought I'm very close to you. So yes, my name's Vic, and a few years ago, without much thought, I decided to set up a group for people who were working or volunteering or were trustees of small international development charities. And I think it was possibly just out of a feeling of isolation, actually, of kind of feeling as if I didn't have any of my own sort of colleagues. I wasn't in an office. I was probably sitting at my kitchen table, kind of feeling quite isolated in my work, and wanting to feel connected to other people who were doing a similar thing. And I think it probably came off the back of starting to attend some FSI and small charities coalition events, where I think I was kind of, because I entered the sector very kind of unofficially. I didn't study international development. I didn't think I was going to have a career in the charity sector. I was a teacher that did a bit of volunteering, and I kind of segued into the sector quite randomly. And so I had no idea that this sector was a huge thing. And so I started going to a few FSI events and small charities coalition events. There's other people like me. But what I think I did find is that the small NGO sector was a subsector of what already is a subsector of small charities. So I felt even more kind of alone in a sense, because in the room there was usually mainly UK-based charities and maybe one or two other people who were working internationally. And you would sort of end up gravitating towards those other people. And I remember leaving and thinking, you know, I want a way to stay connected to those people. And I had maybe 5 or 10 or so kind of individuals that I knew of who were running charities, and we would occasionally exchange an email, and I just thought how nice it would be if we could have a space where we could keep in touch. So I set up this group and didn't really think anything of it, and then a couple of years later, when I'm almost up to about 1,000 members, which has been amazing, and I haven't really had to do too much to keep it going. It's just organically grown, I think, through people referring friends, or we get referrals from the FSI when people come to them and say, you know, I need this policy, or I need some advice on this. And it's just shown, I think, what there is, which is a real kind of desire to be connected, and a real frustration with the constant reinventing of the wheel when we're all out there doing it individually, when we could all actually just be helping each other and saving a lot of time. So we've got a shared resource, Google Drive in the Facebook group, where people add policies, project design templates, MEL design sort of frameworks. If they've done an interesting piece of research, they might add it in there. We've had people through the Facebook group, some of them might be watching actually, hello, you are. We've had people finding trustees, recruiting staff, or finding volunteers, sort of connecting through disciplines. So we've had like a mental health and hygiene group who've sort of had like a webinar together, who shared resources. We've had people connecting based on where they're physically located in the UK, who've been, you know, getting together and having a drink and actually meeting in real life, which has been really exciting. And it's just proven to be this really nice community. And as well as kind of the more serious stuff of sharing practical resources, it's also just been somewhere to share a frustration or share a success. So every Friday we have a brag basket where I say, you know, come on, tell us something great that's happened, and I don't think we do that enough as a sector. And also opportunities to share failure and just to talk really openly when things aren't going well, because I think it's really important that everybody is kind of aware that it's not always as rosy as it seems on someone's website or Facebook page, and that quite often it's a real struggle, and there's usually 1 or 2 people behind that struggle, which can be really isolating. So I've been really excited to be asked to talk about my little Facebook group. It's kind of weird to me to think that this Facebook group has become something that might be considered alongside something like this, but I'm really up for anything that connects people in the sector, and I think, as Pauline said, the future of the sector is through collaboration. We just can't exist in isolation. And part of the problem we have is that we don't know what we don't know. We don't know the organisations that are out there, and you just don't know about them until you stumble across them, you meet someone at an event. I've overheard people in cafes who mention something about development, and I'm like, sorry, what? Did you say you work in development? And it's just this real want to be connected, and a tool like this, I think, is going to be really helpful. And there was a question about how can this help small charities, and in addition to what you guys both said, the first thing I would be doing is looking for other charities who are geographically located around me in the UK, so Sheffield for me, and our offices in Kenya, and finding who they are and going and meeting them and having coffee with them, and sourcing, looking at them by where they are and what size they are, and just trying to connect with people who are doing similar work. So that would be how I think small charities will really benefit from this, as well as the potential of funders finding us, which I would love if someone just contacted me and said, hey, I found you on this website and want to give you some money. That would be pretty nice. But I'm really grateful that you've asked me to be a part of it. I was part of the little focus group in Sheffield, and it's really exciting to be part of it. And I'm kind of, my heart is warmed by the fact that it's just started through these little connections that we've made with the FSI and various other people. So it's great to meet all of you guys, and hopefully we'll have a bit of time to chat afterwards as well. But thank you for all the hard work that you put into it, and thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of it as well.
Say as well that when we were looking at the design of the site, thinking what sort of functionality we could put on it, when we saw the Facebook site and doing all the things that Facebook does fantastically well, we thought, well, that's brilliant. There's no need for messaging boards or ways of communicating on this site, because that's done already. To complement what's already out there, this has all the functionality that you need. So thank you. Sarah, John, please tell us about the ER team.
Oh, okay. Hello. My name's Sarah Johns. I work for Holland. Oh, yes. Sorry. Right, okay. So, yeah, I'm Sarah. I work for Bond. I'm the transparency manager here at Bond. Bond, if you don't know us, we're a network organisation of over 450 now. Organisations working in international development. If you do know us, you probably think that we do mostly work with larger NGOs, which is true. But we've got a new programme of work called A-Connect, and through that A-Connect work, we're actually working very closely with the regional networks in Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and the South West International Development Network as well, to help build their capacity to work directly with smaller organisations or NGOs. So that's a very core piece of the work that we're doing. And I think, one of the strengths of something like this, and of the International Aid Transparency Initiative, which is what I work on, is really about making information accessible, not only so it's kind of a funky bit of tech, but also, as others have said, to be able for you to connect with each other, but more importantly to build relationships. Technology can only really take you so far, but if you have the ability to kind of contact others in a similar situation to yourselves, that's certainly going to go a long way. And also just from the transparency side, it's great to see an initiative that actually uses the information that you submit every year through the Returns to Charity Commission and make it useful. Which is something Charity Commission should really be doing, but I'm kind of being at the moment. So it's great to see this initiative. And also, why I've been involved in it is really to be able to bring IATI data and this data together. So if you don't know IATI data, there's 970 organisations publishing information openly about over 1 million projects. And most of those you probably think were very large organisations, but actually 670 of those are NGOs like yourselves, and not just in the UK, but in Kenya, in Ghana, Uganda, Nepal as well. And it actually is turning out to be a really useful bit of information that you can actually use as kind of almost business intelligence to find out again who's working where. It gives a bit more detail to the Charity Commission data, and also to help organisations and NGOs in those countries actually see who else is working, not just in their own country, but in surrounding countries. So I went out to Tanzania last year to work, do some workshops with local NGOs in Tanzania to show them this data, and they were super excited as well that at a click of a button, similar to this, they could see data from countries around Tanzania and also countries as well. So just, you know, this open data, it's not a revolution, but it's actually turning into something really, really useful. So thank you to Dan and the team, to FSI also for supporting it as well. And you're very welcome again to talk to the guys afterwards, and also we've got some
Thank you to Sarah as well, who's able to book the room and get the place sorted out and arrange all the tech which allows people to feed in remotely. Nikki Banks is one of the reasons why this whole thing is here. But Nikki.
Great. Hi everyone. I would like to start just by reiterating what Dan said to begin with, and thank you all for coming. Can't tell you how delighted we are to see, now that this is going public, how hopefully useful it is to you. We've had a lot of good feedback, and that's exactly why we designed this. It was not for research purposes, it's really to try and find a tool that might help the efforts that you're making to strengthen civil society. So thank you. I wanted to spend just a few minutes talking about how Dan and I got here. We're researchers by trade, the University of Manchester, and Dan from Sheffield. Both of us interested in development and development NGO sector, but very aware that actually we know very little about the development NGO sector. There's been lots of research on civil society, but that doesn't sift into development NGOs versus other charities. And actually what we know about the development sector is it looks like and acts quite differently to broader civil society. So we were quite astonished actually how little we know. So we were interested in from that question, what we know, what we don't know, but there's really important policy implications for that. So how can evidence, how can policies for civil society or to strengthen civil society actually be evidence-based if we don't know much about it? Even more problematic than what we do know is around the experiences of the biggest NGOs in the sector. That was a real problem for us. So we started trying to, before this lovely tool existed, we tried to use what was already there through charity commissions, websites, through sifting through charities' annual reports, trying to find a list of charities that were development oriented and that we could kind of filter down into a meaningful category. And in doing so, we mapped the NGO sector that was working, UK-based international development NGO sector. There were some really positive things that came out of that research, a really sort of strong positive narrative. A sector that, despite all of the turmoil, has done nothing but increase both in its income and expenditure and in the number of organisations within it. So the data shows over the last 5 years we're doing really well. But there was also a darker side to the narrative that to us is actually one of the main findings. It's not a new trend, or it's not a trend that will be unfamiliar to you, but the unevenness within the sector as to where income and expenditure goes was very striking. So around 90% of expenditure is concentrated within 8% of the organisations. That becomes diluted even further if you capture the NGOs that we weren't able to look at that spend less than £10,000 a year. That's a huge inequality in income, it's a huge inequality in power. And again, meeting Pauline at her event at Small Charities Week, our findings came out, and when we heard from the charities themselves, this was a source of real frustration and anxiety, because they're not listening to the people that are representing the masses. So for us, the initial information, that initial finding around unevenness, that was for us a call to action. It's a very strong advocacy tool to say, look, we've been telling you for years how uneven it is and that you have to do something differently, but now we've got some figures. But that kind of vague numbers isn't really helpful to you as a sector in terms of mobilising each other and trying to find ways to work together to take that knowledge and power into a way that can turn that knowledge into action. And that really sort of set the foundations for this. So how can we help NGOs strengthen what they're already doing, build up that strength in numbers, mobilise a bit more and become a force for change, which is one of the things that you're so good at. So our little attempts to help in what you're already doing was creating this. And again, it would have been absolutely impossible to do without David's skills and Dan's huge wealth of data, but it's great to be at a stage where you're opening it up and sharing it with you. So thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. Are there any questions at all which have arisen in the last, well, in these quick presentations?
I realised I didn't actually say the name of the which is
What's
not
the name of
the most catchy name. It's called the Small International Development Charity. I didn't really put much thought into it when I was coming up with it, so it doesn't even turn into a nice acronym. But if you're interested in joining that.
Anybody else? Okay, could you please tell your friends and colleagues about this? Spread the word so that it goes out there. That this presentation will be recorded, will be available online. There's all the tweets going out which also point towards it. Please tell people about it. And please come back to us. Tell us how you find it useful. And if there's anything which could make it more useful. We see this as the first stage in a project which could get bigger and could become more of a useful resource for the community. But that does require your engagement, telling us what you need. And could you please also help yourself to nibbles and wine and orange juice, and there's white wine in the fridge, but you have something cooler. Thank you very much indeed for being here.
I can't.